Welcome, 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 everybody. It's great to see you here today. I love it. I see some familiar faces, especially some people that were just at Teach for the Bay that are already coming over here. This is wonderful. I see some colleagues. Oh, we have more joining also. I see some colleagues from College of the Canyons coming in. I love that. I'm sure Chancellor Van Hook will love to see some familiar faces today. We are thrilled. I'm bringing more people in, so everybody just be patient for a moment as we are allowing everybody in. But we are thrilled to have you here today. Hi, I see some hands waving. It's great to see everybody today. Let's go ahead and get going because we have a robust time spent together today. I'm really looking forward to this. I did talk to Chancellor Van Hook and warn her that we will have people coming in throughout the community of practice. That's one of the things that we have set up with these communities of practice, having the ability for people to pop in whenever they are available. It's great when you're able to show your face and we get to have a chance to see you. If you're double or triple tasking though, it's absolutely okay that we just have some names on here as well, but it's wonderful to see everybody today. And I'm so excited to talk with our speaker, and I'm excited for this community of practice to really start today. So just for a quick little context for everybody, welcome. My name is Renee Marshall. I have been serving California community colleges now. I was thinking about it earlier today. I've been serving our community colleges since 2007 in more of like a larger capacity, but I actually started working at a community college back in 2004. So I've had the opportunity to work in our education system for the last 17 years, and I'm thrilled with what we do, the opportunities we bring. I actually have two children who are currently enrolled in dual enrollment classes, so I'm seeing the benefit of even our high school students and them being engaged in our education systems. And so thrilled to have everybody here today. During the pandemic, the team that I'm part of, which is the California Community College Teacher Preparation Programs, it's another acronym, CCC-TPP, but if you ever hear TPP, you know that's the teacher prep team. During the pandemic, we had to figure out how to take our lab courses, our practicum and our field work, and still continue to train teachers even in the virtual space. And so during the pandemic, towards the start of the pandemic, we had the opportunity to open up two communities of practice, one that focuses on education and one that focuses on early childhood education. When we first opened these communities of practice, we thought it was going to be a couple meetings where we all come together, see what the gaps are due to the pandemic, package up something nice for the field and give it out. And what we found out was that the spaces need to continue. The communities of practice need to grow. And so we have been successfully leading two communities of practice across state and across our state education systems for the last 14 months. And today we open up our third community of practice. Through this work that we've done during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of leaders in our system and a lot of new leaders in our system really step up and help us to really not just like survive the pandemic, but to really thrive in what we do and to really reimagine education and make sure that we're continuing to provide those opportunities for our students. So the need came up for more leadership support for those of us in the system that are serving as leads right now, but want to continue to increase our capacity. And so this idea for a leadership community of practice came up. And when it came up, I said to the team, the first person we have to invite is Dr. Dianne Van Hook. And fortunately, everybody was totally supportive. I'm completely biased. I worked at Dianne's campus for 14 years of my career. I love this woman. I have the opportunity to have been involved in her leadership trainings over the years and to have benefited from her vision of what leadership, not just what it is, but what it can be and what our education systems need from us. So with that, I'm going to read Dianne's bio to everybody, and this is the short version, but I want everybody to have an idea of the depth of her experience, the depth of her knowledge, and just the opportunity we have today to sit with Dianne and to learn from her. So with that, Dr. Dianne Van Hook. Dr. Dianne Van Hook is in her 33rd year of service as CEO of the Santa Clarita Community College District and College of the Canyons. When hired in 1998, Dr. Van Hook became the youngest serving California Community College CEO at 37 years old. She was one of only 5 women to serve as a district level CEO at the time. At that time, there were 70 colleges within our system. Currently, Dr. Dianne Van Hook is the longest serving CEO in the California Community College system. She presides over a district that covers 365 square miles and serves an ever-increasing and diverse population numbering more than 27,000 people. Since 1998, the college's budget has grown from $8 million to $239.1 million, and its physical space has gone from just under 200,000 square feet to over 900,000 square feet and over 2 campuses. Annually, College of the Canyon serves more than 33,000 different students in our 4 credit program areas. As the third largest employer in Santa Clarita Valley, community leaders describe College of the Canyons as innovative, cutting edge, responsible, flexible, resourceful, high quality instruction of higher learning. College leaders continuously build and strengthen partnerships with the community, which makes College of the Canyons a vital ingredient in the region's economic development. The district has experienced remarkable innovation, advancement, and growth under Dr. Van Hook's leadership. Dr. Van Hook's understanding of community college funding spans the national level, the system level, and the local level. Starting with serving on the task force that developed the implementation of AB 1725, including program-based funding formula, Dr. Dianne Van Hook has served on a dozen statewide task forces charged with developing and evaluating the 3 previous funding formulas that allocated resources to the community colleges and has put them into practice as a college president and a district-level CEO. She has served with distinction on more than 38 state boards. She has not only served, but led as the president of the Association of California Community College Administrators, the Community College League of California, Chief Executive Officers of California Community Colleges, Chair of the Consultation Council, and District CEO of the South Coast Central Regional Consortium. Dr. Van Hook is a resourceful and a strong advocate for community colleges at the state and the national levels. She has served as president of the community. Oh, I'm sorry. I just had a little glitch there where I repeated a paragraph there. Sorry about that. A California Community College graduate herself, Dr. Van Hook has dedicated to her career to removing barriers, expanding access, enhancing options, and creating opportunities for anyone who wants to pursue a higher education. It is her intense natural drive that helps to build and maintain solid relationships both on and off campus, as well as maintain the high level of fuel on which her collaborative spirit thrives. That inspires others to work together towards a common goal of removing barriers to student success. So with that, everybody, let's please welcome Dr. Dianne Van Hook today. I always want to clap too. Yay, Diane's here. So Dianne, I'm going to go ahead and start your PowerPoint slide and you tell me when you want me to move through. We're going to have an opportunity to ask her some questions. So please, as you have questions, make sure to put them in the chat. Also, I apologize I didn't say this yet. Please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. We want to know everybody who's here today. And with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Van Hook.
Okay. So the first question that you wanted me to respond to, I believe, was what is your philosophy of leadership? And you can go to the next slide there. So I actually learned a lot about leadership from kayaking. I grew up in the Midwest. I spent a lot of time on my grandmother's farms and northwestern Minnesota. And the farms, my grandma's farm didn't have any indoor plumbing. It had an outhouse down the little beaten path there. And we had a pump that we pumped water in the kitchen. So I started to learn about, I don't know, just getting on in life by doing the things that you had to do or you got to do every day, and never viewed them as have to do, but viewed them as want to do. And that has really guided my career and how I choose to live my life. I don't like to spend time doing things I don't like. I don't like to spend time doing things that I don't think it's a good fit with the strengths and the passion that I want to invest. So now I kayak. Back in Minnesota, we didn't have kayaks, we had rowboats. and canoes, much harder to navigate than a kayak. But I kayak, I try to kayak several times a week. And being in Southern California, of course, it's possible to kayak almost all year round. And I learned from kayaking what I learned from working on the farm in Minnesota, and that is that unfamiliarity is a constant. And aren't we glad that it's a constant? I don't know about you, but I am not patient and I get bored extremely quickly. And to do the same thing day after day, hour after hour, month after month, boy, I'd be in a coma if I functioned that way. And so I've learned from kayaking, unfamiliarity is a constant and it's kind of fun. Unpredictability is a constant. When you're out on the lake, you can't predict what's going to happen. You can go out and it can be flat as a pancake, and in 20 minutes the winds can whip up and everything can change. I've learned that the challenge is balancing and the strength between balance and forward movement. So you have to be steady and strong in what you know you can do, and the confidence that if you don't know how to do it, you can figure it out. But you also can't worry about tipping at all. You have to be able to move forward. So the struggle between the challenge is really the balance between balance and the strength of moving forward. When you're in a kayak, just as in any position that you're in, you really can't give up when you're weak or you're tired or you're bored. If it's your professional responsibility, then assume that responsibility, embrace that responsibility. And if it is boring, figure out how to make it not boring. In a kayak, you have to know where you want to go. You always have to know where you're trying to go, way out there. You have to be able to navigate and change direction, just like driving the Southern California freeway system in real time. Thank God we now at least have navigational tools on our GPS system that can tell you, you got to get off here. If you don't get off here, you're going to sit in a parking lot. So to get off and take these roads, you have to learn to trust Waze. That lady, I call her Wazy to make it more personal, but you have to learn to trust her, even though you know what she's telling you doesn't make any sense. But she sees the satellite view, right? The great big picture view. You have to make the time to prepare many times. And I think that's one thing I've learned about these Zoom meetings is sometimes people don't make the time to prepare. They roll from one Zoom meeting that ends at 10:59 to the next one that ends at 11. They're scrambling around trying to find their stuff. And even though preparation is not always the most exciting, it pays off many times over. When you're in a kayak, you have to be tenacious. It doesn't matter how strong that wind is. You cannot stop paddling. You have to keep paddling. You have to make sure that you take with you what you need. I'm also a hiker, and I learned very early on when I was doing fairly energetic hikes in the Sierras when I lived in Lake Tahoe, where I was able to work to build that college, that you got to have enough water. I understand water's easier to carry now than it was then because we have bottled water, but you got to make sure you have enough, because let me tell you, 12 miles in to that lake's basin, there is no water fountain or vending machine. So you've got to make sure that you have the tools that you need, the map that can tell you where you're going and what the alternative routes are. And then I think most of it has to do with attitude. And I am a big believer, Renee will tell you, I do believe that attitude is everything. I believe that we become what we give ourselves permission to be. And what we give ourselves permission to be stems from whether we have a positive attitude or a negative one, or maybe not even just a neutral one. So for me, all of that and what I've learned from being on the water and from kayaking and from growing up on a farm and from moving around a lot when I was a kid is that leadership is about inspiring other people. That's why I lead. I don't lead for the title and I don't lead for whatever. I sure as heck don't lead for the boring and tedious stuff that I have to do in order to get the opportunity to lead. it's about inspiring others. It's about inspiring others and challenging them to push themselves to identify where they want to end up. How do they define where they want to end up, and creating opportunities so that they can get in touch with their own potential and own that potential and have confidence in it with a can-do spirit of innovation, open-mindedness, and confidence, and constantly learning. My first job in the community colleges was when I was a student at, I think we may try, let's go to the next slide, see what's on the next slide, Renee. Yeah, okay. You can stay there for a sec. My first job in the community colleges was at Long Beach City College when I was a student there. And it was as a teacher in the Early Childhood Education Center that had just been built through $1 million donation by Isabel Patterson, who was a realtor in Long Beach. And I ended up in the field of child development by accident. I loved English and literature. And I was trying to avoid having to take his speech class. So I thought if I wasn't real clear on my path, and I wasn't real clear on how much of what I could take. So I took every literature class I could, and one of them was literature for young children or something there too. And I really liked it. So then I took another one of the classes, and I ended up accumulating 12 units and was able to get my teacher's permit, which I still have framed in my office. And I was so excited to work with little people, little children, because little children are creative, and they're naturally tenacious. When I came to College of the Canyons, the Child Development Center was across the hallway in our building. So whenever I would get a stack of papers from Sacramento and have to fill something that was incredibly boring, I'd take a break, I'd set it all down, plunk it down, I'd walk across the hallway, I'd go sit at one of those little tiny tables. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm 5'9", and I have very long legs. I'm all legs. So me on those little chairs with those little tables that were about 12 inches tall must have been a sight for sore eyes. But I'd go over there and I'd play with the kids. They'd try something, it wouldn't work. They wouldn't have a tizzy fit. They wouldn't pout. Maybe 1 out of 25 would pout. The rest of them would just smash it all down and start all over again. And it was so exciting. So my beginning in public education at Long Beach City College Child Development Center, and then in the program called Head Start in inner city Long Beach, is really what fueled my passion for working in education. And my grandmother also, who was on that farm with the outhouse and the very hard work, she was a teacher and had her own school in Minnesota, Elizabeth, Minnesota. When she was 16, she got a teacher's credential from what was called a normal school. And I thought, I want to be just like my grandma. She's tough. She's courageous. She was widowed at the age of 39 with 4 kids during the Depression. And she ran that farm till she was 90 years old in rural Minnesota with no indoor plumbing. And so I wanted to be like my grandma. So combining passion in education with a very strong role model inspired me to work to build relationships, which I think have served me well over the years, as I have had a great opportunity to be mentored by all different kinds of people from education and not from education. Relationships, inspiration, and belief in yourself are really the foundations of my philosophy of leadership. The other thing is that you just have to do it, right? In education, I was on a webinar on Wednesday to support the launch of a new book by Von Ton Quinlivan, who used to be our Vice Chancellor of Economic Development, and now works for Futuro, which is a special part of Kaiser Foundation to promote and accelerate training in the health professions. And she wanted me to be part of her introduction chapter, so I was. And I was thrilled to be able to reinforce that in education, sometimes we have a lot of rules. You know, the community colleges have Title V, and I don't know how many pages Title V currently is. We used to have 10,000 sections. And someone once asked me, have you read Title V? I said, not really. I read Title V when I need to read Title V. A lot of Title V is included in regulations that are 50 years old that have never been changed. When the new laws come in, they don't take the old ones off the books. We still have parts of Title V that relate to when we were part of the K-12 system, when community colleges were part of K-12, and we had boards that oversaw K-12 and community colleges as an entity. So I think that you have to be practical, you have to be relevant, you have to be optimistic, or at least my philosophy is, and you have to push yourself to do that which is not already known. In education, we want people to be right, correct? I mean, we used to grade on a bell curve, and only a certain percentage could get an A, a little more percentage a B, the majority a C, a little less a D, and a few an F. Well, what's wrong with if everybody does the work and everybody gets it? Everybody gets an A. Everybody ought to be able to freely strive to do that. And I think sometimes we overanalyze what we do and we want to be right. So we refrain from doing until we can figure out how to do it right. We'd be a lot better off sometimes to follow what our little kids do in the child development. Just do it, like the Nike commercial said. Just do it. And if it doesn't work, do it again and do it a different way. That we are learning institutions, and we ought to be actively engaged in challenging ourselves to see how much we can figure out and incorporate as we go ahead. So the next, are you going to ask me the next question, or you just want me to talk?
Either way, or we can go to, shall I go to the next slide?
Sure.
We'd like to know a bit about you becoming the first female chancellor.
Well, so I became, the community college system, as you know, has 3 different kinds of CEOs. We have college presidents, and then we have college presidents who also run their own district. So we have a college level and a district level. And then we have chancellors who have multiple college presidents that report to them. So when I took my position in 1988, and I was a superintendent president. We had one campus, a little one, in those days. And when I took that job, there were 5 women out of the 70 district level CEOs, superintendent presidents, and chancellors. The average age of the CEOs at that time was about 55, and I was 37. So interestingly enough, the greatest differentiator in those days wasn't that I was female, it's that I wasn't 55. And it took me 4 years to go from being a faculty coordinator leader in Santa Ana over non-traditional student services, gender equity, and the foundation. I did that for 7 years after I was a middle school teacher for 6 years. And so I did that, and then I decided, okay, I got big ideas here, and I want to like be my own boss, kind of. So I need to be a college president. Well, I hadn't been an administrator. I'd done administrator functions because many of our colleges, the leadership should be spread throughout the organization. I was a dean at Feather River College for 2 years, and a dean dean. I think I was deputy superintendent of Lake Tahoe Community College for 2 years. So I went from being a faculty member to being a president superintendent in 4 years. Now, I never did the tour of duty like department chair and assistant dean and vice president of instruction or student services. I didn't do those steps in between. I jumped straight to dean of the college, which meant I was dean of everything overnight from Friday to Monday, except business services and facilities and the president. So I was in charge of public information. I was in charge of human resources. I was in charge of the child development centers. I was in charge of special student services, you name it, the small business development center. So I had to really learn quickly. So I think for me, I was surprised that people thought and equated years with capability. I found that extremely offensive. So it was exciting for me to be in this role. It was a chance to break through the glass ceiling that was being imposed on the desirable path to the presidency. Coming to College of the Canyons when it was only 19 years old, and was small, with plenty of land all around us and plenty of opportunity, it was like a dream come true to imagine, to balance, to design, to build, and to deploy. And I really used my grandmother as a role model, as well as my experience in Girl Scouts, which was very, Girl Scouts had pathways, right? There was a pathway to every single one of those merit badges, right? And you had to do certain things and you had to balance it all. And for me, I moved around, went to 13 elementary schools by the time I was in the 6th grade in 7 different states. So I was never anywhere long enough to make real good friends. So the common thing where I felt like I belonged was Girl Scouts, because as a Brownie or a Girl Scout, you wore the same dang uniform, no matter what state, whether rural, urban, big, little. And I felt like I could connect to a larger vision and focus. So for me, becoming a college president was an opportunity, just as all other leaders have, to make footprints on the path to where you want to get to be a better place for what you're working for, and know that those footprints will at least become a tentative roadmap for somebody else. I once again had to call on myself to inspire myself, because there weren't a lot of people around that thought that I was very capable, because I just wasn't old enough. So I think inspiration was kind of like the gas in the engine. It was like my energy drink, that I would drink every day. I think inspiration feeds your soul. It helps you keep moving, even if you don't know what you're doing. It's a catalyst for change. It's something that comes from absorbing everything around you, as well as absorbing and generating it from within. And it's, sorry, I have to change my cord here. It looks like I'm my battery maybe not charging. I mean, oh no, there it goes. And it challenges you to try different things. There is never just one way to get somewhere, unless you're in Quincy at Feather River College. There's only one road in, Highway 70, and the same road goes out. But with that very rare and unique exception, there's always a different way, and you can always learn. I think any of us who've been inspired by another person, whether a friend, a colleague, or a boss, understands the power that inspiration has to spur you on to action and keep you going. It's like you also can change your perspective. I take photographs, and you can start out facing an object, and if you move 10 degrees to the left or 30 degrees to the left, or you get down a little lower, or you take it from up above, you have a different perspective. And that's why I think it's so important for leaders at every turn to create opportunities for their team to experience inspiration. Renee mentioned some of the leadership programs, and we have invested heartily in a program. We started it in 2008 when we went into a recession. And we started it intentionally because we didn't want good ideas to stop just because the state, the news, everybody was saying, oh my God, we're going into the deepest recession we've had since whenever the last one was. We didn't want that to happen. So we started LEAP, which was a chance to, it's called Leadership in Action Program, Leadership Excellence in Action Program, and gave staff at any level and any job category an opportunity to develop their capability. Out of that process, we've had about 55 to 60 solution teams develop project proposals and business plans, and we've implemented 90% of those even during a recession. And they have given rise to some great things on our campus, from a reentry center to a veteran center to a multicultural center to a FIT program, which trains faculty, future faculty from business and industry to work in our business, to a behavioral intervention team to help with our students. And we developed those things because people thought they were great ideas, and we developed them at a time when we didn't really understand the impact they would have. That BIT team has been more active since the pandemic than anybody ever would have imagined. So for me, it's all about inspiring. It's all about thinking. It's all about having the grit and determination to continue to move forward. And it's about creating the capacity in other people, because when you do that, it ripples out and the impact can be amazing.
Dianne, you said something in particular. I just want to just say it again. We become what we give ourselves permission to be. That's huge. I was actually working with somebody from the Heart District recently on a collaboration where they're going to be working with some community colleges. And it's somebody I totally respect from that district. I've known her for over 20 years. And in communication, she sent me a message and said, Renee, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
I want to take it on, but I'm not sure. And I wrote her back and I was like, heck yeah, you're ready. That's why you got your doctorate. That's why you've done all the things you've done over these last couple of years. Stop questioning yourself and just jump. And then I got an email instantly, Renee, I'm in. And it was like she didn't give herself permission, and she needed a colleague to just say, wait a second, I see your talent. I see your worth. Open your eyes and let's move forward. And so, Dianne, I love that you said that, because I think sometimes we end up being our biggest roadblocks. And I don't understand why we allow ourselves to do that. Would you mind talking about that just a little bit more?
Well, I think our whole regular educational system focuses on getting the right answers. It's not focused on getting to a solution. It's focused on getting the right answers. And there's a subtle difference there. There's many ways to get to a solution. So I think for the most part, many of us have been brought up that way. There's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. There's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. I don't read directions. I don't like them. Now, I probably don't like them because I don't have patience for them. Because when I was working on a farm with my grandma in the summers in Minnesota, the stuff was so old, the directions had long since gone by the wayside. And if something broke, we were too far away from any kind of a reasonable town or level of technical expertise. We just had to noodle around and figure out how to solve the dang problem. And that's what I loved about Girl Scout merit badges, kind of the same thing. So I think that we become too critical and don't give ourselves enough flexibility to figure it out. And we we don't therefore give ourselves permission to do, and with the knowledge we may have to redo. Well, so what? I mean, you redo how many times a week do you redo things over and over and over again? So I think people don't realize that most of the conversation that they're having with themselves, less than 5% of it is verbalized. You talk to yourself all day long on everything, from when you first look in the mirror and say, oh, good God, this is going to be a real challenge today, to not having enough gas in your car, to having forgot to get back to somebody. I mean, we judge ourselves in our heads all day long. When I'll tell you a story and we talk ourselves out of things. We wait till somebody else, we have the guts to tell somebody else, and if they tell us it's a good idea, we pursue it. And if they go, they don't. So I used to always have conversations with myself when I drove from my house in Seal Beach to Santa Ana College. And sometimes those were short conversations, because if I got up and left the house at 6:45, I was there in 15 minutes. However, if I dilly-dallied around or was working on another project, I didn't get out the door, I might be on the road for an hour sitting in traffic. So I'd have these conversations and I'd come up with these ideas. So one day I was coming up with the fact that this was before we had that cling saran wrap. And I was trying to make the saran wrap work on something I was taking in to the office, probably cookies or brownies for the day. And I couldn't make it stick. So I got a rubber band and I put the rubber band around the saran wrap, and then I put it in the car. And I'm driving along and I'm thinking there has to be a better way. And all of a sudden I said, I know, I could have used one of those throwaway shower caps from the hotels. I could just stretch that sucker over there. There's built-in elastic. This is a genius idea. And had I gone with that, I would have made a lot of money, because, what was it, 10 or 12 years ago, out comes those things that look like shower caps for little people, medium people, and big people's heads. And it was to do the same thing. I thought, oh, nobody's going to think that's a good idea. Well, actually, somebody obviously along the way did. So I think that we have to make sure that we don't delimit our possibilities by either not having enough confidence or telling ourselves it's never been done, or they tried it 29 years ago and it didn't work, so why try today? Like, what's the same between now and 29 years ago? Not very much. We have to give ourselves permission to leap, to raise our hands, to jump in, and to take that chance. So I really believe that. I think we are our own creators and our own worst enemies if we tell ourselves we're not good enough or we can't.
Diane, you're saying all sorts of things that I think I'm not alone in writing down notes right now. I'm like, ooh, don't delimit possibilities. That needs to be a t-shirt. I'm like, she's saying some stuff right now that we could market. I mean, this is just great, Diane. And let's continue. I'll go to the next slide and, tell us a bit more about, like, why do you choose to lead? I know you're at a position now that you don't have to be the chancellor at COC. You could probably pick almost many, many positions across the nation. And yet you stay here, you continue to lead. Tell us more about that.
Well, community colleges gave me my start. I was supposed to go to the University of Michigan. I was an honors student in high school, had completed 30 college units through what we now call dual enrollment. We didn't call it that back in the day. We were part, the Long Beach City College and Long Beach Unified were part of the same district, so the programming was automatic. Yet my dad was given an opportunity to advance and yet move to Northern California. He chose not to do that. We'd actually lived in the same house for 4 years. We knew that when he made that decision, the company would not keep him because they didn't have to in those days. So part of that was looking at the ripple effect of that decision. And one was we were going to have to contain resources. So I went off to Long Beach City College and I wasn't very happy about it. I was an honors student. I wanted to go back to the Midwest. I missed the Midwest. So I kind of had a bad attitude. And when I went in to see my counselor, and in those days, your counselor had to sign your program. They had to sign the classes you could take and when you would take those classes. And then you would line up outside the gym at 5 a.m. and wait till they opened the door on your day. And you'd run into the gym. And then I'd go to your table, Renee, and I'd say, "Oh, Mrs. Marshall, would you please let me in this class? I really need to have this class." And I get to do my sales pitch. And that's how we built programs. That's how we got our classes. So my counselor, who was eventually became the Chancellor Riverside Community College District, head of the Seattle Community Colleges. He was transitioning from being men's state award-winning basketball coach to being a dean of students at Long Beach City College in 1968. And he was doing counselor duty during the summer, and that's the counselor I got. And I went into his office, and of course he was a big team guy, go team, go. And everything was positive and it was competitive. And he asked me, he said, "Well, young lady, what do you want to study here?" I'll never forget it. And it's been a long time. "What do you want to study here at Long Beach City College?" I said, "You know what? I don't really care. I really don't want to be here at Long Beach City College. I'm a victim of my circumstances. All I need is 12 units so I can keep my car insurance." Well, that was absolutely, I didn't read that audience very well. That was absolutely not the right thing to say. And he looked at me and he asked me, he was trying to be positive, asked me a couple more things. Our appointment was only 30 minutes long. It was getting to be lunchtime. Finally, I wouldn't look at him. I wouldn't look at him in the eyes. I wouldn't make eye contact because I didn't have a lot of confidence. And I was taking it out on this poor helpful guy. So finally he stood up, he put his coat on. He started to walk towards the door and I said, excuse me, Dr. Kane, excuse me, but I don't have a signed program. And if I don't get this card signed, I can't register. And if I can't register, I can't drive. And in those days, you had to go where you lived in community colleges. You had to go where the district boundaries were. You couldn't go to any college like we can today. So he said, "Well, that's really your problem. And that's a problem of your making. And it stems from your attitude and your lack of thought about what you wanted to study here. We don't want people here just to take up space and provide warm, hot air. We want people who have goals and are going to make something of this amazing opportunity. So I'm going to lunch." And I said, "Well, blah, 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 blah." And he said, "I'll be back in 28 minutes. I'm going over here to the cafeteria. I suggest you ask my secretary for a college catalog. And in 28 minutes, you figure out what your major is and what you believe you want to take this semester. And if you're convincing, and if you've changed your attitude, and if you look me in the eyes, I might sign your program." And out he walks, leaves me in his office. And his secretary, who was in the Air Force as a nurse in World War II, whose name was Ray LaForce, I'm not kidding, leans in the door jamb, puts her elbow on the door jamb. She was about 6'2", and she says, "Well, seems like you got yourself in quite a pickle, young lady." And I said, "Yes, that's very clear to me now. I didn't see it going in, but I was just going one step at a time." She says, "Here's the catalog, pick a major, sit up straight, be polite, and see if you can talk your way back into this opportunity that was presented to you." So he came back, I did, and he made sure that I was free on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because every Friday I got to bring a brown bag lunch in, and he was going to help me work on my attitude. And he got me involved in student activities, and I started to develop confidence and capability. So had it not been for him and another woman, Beverly O'Neill, at Long Beach City College, who was our women's students advisor, who's still a very close friend of mine, I would not, I don't know what would have happened to me. I might still be a bank teller at the Bank of America on Cherry and Anaheim Street in Long Beach, the senior citizens branch, where I worked in the afternoon after working with 2-year-olds in the morning. So I had the total picture here, the total gamut. My loyalty is with community colleges. I believe that we are the people's college. We 100% of people in California can go to a community college. We take the top 100%, and there's nothing more exciting than that. It makes me really happy to know that through causing other people to think about possibilities, we create opportunities for people to succeed and achieve their dreams. It's about relationships because they create lasting meaning for me. People matter for me. Honesty matters, integrity matters, forthrightness matters. Discovering possibilities, that's what we do in community colleges. We discover possibilities each and every day. I enjoy coaching, connecting with others, helping to overcome challenges, and I love planning. I had wanted to be an architect when I was in junior high, and we took these silly aptitude tests. And I rated really high on mechanical reasoning and spatial relations and seeing it in your head and transforming it to a schematic. But in those days, women, girls in Long Beach were not allowed to take wood shop, auto shop, drafting. We got to take sewing, cooking, typing, and singing, none of which are my things. I've been kicked out. I was kicked out of typing 3 times by the time I got to 10th grade. So I think that girls were not allowed to build things. They were not allowed to design things and make things happen. So for me, in our current times, we are literally called upon daily to blaze trails, to get whatever those barriers are out of the way, and to pursue that fascinating challenge, because things are unfrozen now, and when things are unfrozen, you can make changes in the system that you otherwise could not. Just look at Sacramento, look at the chancellor's office, look at how many rules have been waived, eliminated, redefined, and changed. Look at the Doing What Matters funding. The most recent one I was involved in a conversation about used to be that we could use Doing What Matters funding only for credit, things that related to credit instruction, credit training. Now we can use it in non-credit. We can use it in contract ed. It doesn't have to all be degree and 29 units for a certificate directed, because what our businesses want today is people who can differentiate themselves from others based on what they can do, not what they yip yap about, not what their transcript says, not necessarily their pedigree. So I think it's a really great opportunity for people.
Diane, I appreciate you talking about the community college system and why you've stayed with it, because, as somebody I've served in multiple education systems, yet I find myself like, I feel like I need to stay here and be here, because to me, the community college system, we're like the opportunity. When we talk about different, having diversifying fields, and we can go to our CSUs and our UCs and our 4-year colleagues to be part of the charge, but only certain people even get that entry into those, even get to step on those campuses. Whereas we are about everybody and getting everybody to work and meeting students where they are. So I appreciate you reflecting on why you've stayed in the community college system, because there's been many times where I thought she could do anything she wants to. Why would she stay? And so just hearing it was really special, and I appreciate you reflecting on that. So let's go now into a little bit of what advice you have for those in the system right now who are either in a position of leadership or moving into a position of leadership and want to make sure that they're doing what's right and what's best.
Well, I think that the most important thing is to dream big. It's not going to be helpful to conceptualize what you want to do next or what you want to work to move forward, if you only base it on what you've already done. So I think it's one thing to take that next logical step. And I think it's another thing to just leap into some place for which the territory is not already trodden. An example, we have so many examples of ways people have done that at College of the Canyons. I think for me, probably one of the most satisfying ones was when in the late 90s, I started talking about building a higher education learning center. I started talking about why can't we bring the education at the junior and senior and graduate level here to the Valley? Because, and gosh, you know, in 1998, I thought traffic was bad in LA. In hindsight, it was a piece of cake. But I thought there, you know, the barrier of traffic and distance and time and balancing work and going to school at night is just not workable for a lot of people in our valley. So we started talking about the Higher Education Learning Center, which turned into the University Center, which it took us about 10 years to raise the $44 million to build it from a variety of sources, including a state changing a state law on what they would fund out of state funds and what they would approve, which took about 6 years, but we got it done. And you know, we have anywhere at any given time from between 30 and 40 different programs, bachelor's degrees, some master's degrees, one doctorate degree, and a lot of certifications. And we have been able through those programs to have about 4,500 people. We opened the center in 2009, receive advanced degrees that might not have been possible. When I started talking about this, I will remember the reaction of my colleagues in the system. I went to a CEO board meeting. It was in San Francisco at the airport. It was raining outside. We were taking a lunch break and we went around this circle or a square table, and we were all supposed to share something we were doing. That was really exciting. And I talked about, well, we're going to build a university center. And they said, what's that? And I explained it. They said, why do you want to do that? That's not our job. It's not our job to make sure people can get to the upper division coursework for a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. That's somebody else's job. Why do you want to do more stuff? Just do what you do. And I said, well, no, you do what you do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And so I think there were a lot of barriers in the way, including my colleagues. I think for me, I just would same advice I would give you is don't give up. Figure out how to get it done. Make sure you do what you're investing your energy in is you're doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it for an undermining reason. You're not doing it to get back at somebody or something. You're doing it because you want to invest in the future and you want to create those chances. I think this is the most exciting time that we've seen in education. Some people, when I said that the other day in a CEO meeting, they said, oh my gosh, are you having happy hour at 10 in the morning? I said, no, I'm not. I said, just think about it. Think about it. Good ideas that can provide solutions are being glommed onto and grabbed up at a faster pace, especially when you have internal and external partners, when you partner with business, when you partner with families. You can just do so much more now because things are unfrozen. When we get out of this pandemic, we're all going to go back to those 10,000 rules and the 89 steps when you could actually do it in 6. So seize that opportunity. You may never get another chance to do it in such an expeditious way. And remember that your leadership and the way you communicate with people and the role model and the standards and the ethics and the integrity that you demonstrate, matters more than you know. What you do becomes what you will be remembered as and known as. And um, and you want to make sure that's a good fit with what you've worked really hard for. Um, um, there was a speaker I was reading lately on the combination between generosity and philanthropy. Why do people invest? Why do people give? And her name was Sasha Dichter, and she said, "Today, give yourself permission to be outrageously kind, irrationally warm, improbably generous. I promise it will be a blast." And I think that's what I would like to say to you. Um, you create your own chessboard, and the moves you make become the ones that will get you to where you want to go, or if they're strategic and well thought out, or cause you to not go very far. So you need to remember that you're in charge of that destiny. um, I wanted to just for a moment, and I think you can go to the next slide. This wasn't a question, but there's an author named Adele Sheely, not Adele Sheehy, who wrote Passages, but Adele Sheely, who wrote a book back in the late 70s, early 80s, called Skills for Success. And I have it. I still have my copy. She was a speaker at a women's conference I put on at Santa Ana College. Changed my life, that woman. And it's a little paperback book. My version is white with orange and yellow on the cover. And she talked about a different way, putting action into doing. And these are the 6 skills that she suggested that people figure out how to master, which could change their destiny. One was look way out past the horizon and work backwards. What we tend to do when we follow instructions is we do this step first, and then we do this step first, and then we do this step first. Her suggestion was look as far out as you can see, maybe beyond, and dare to dream, and then work backwards to get to where you want to go by experiencing doing. Overcome your limited conceptions of yourself. Trying on new behaviors. What if it doesn't work, right? Just, I'm a licensed therapist in the state of California, and have been for 40 some years. I don't practice because I think that the majority of people who are the majority of people don't necessarily want to get the problem solved. Instead, they want to continue to dwell on the problem. So I don't practice anymore, but I never did very much of it. But I think that if you only do what you've previously done, you will only get what you've previously gotten. And it's like, why do we continue to do the same thing when it didn't work in the first place? And I think somewhere along the line, we have a chance by experiencing doing to change that template and to give ourselves that permission to really thrive and to grow. So experiencing doing is definitely something that I'm having to move here just a moment. I'm trying to find a place to plug this in. Just a minute, sorry. I'm not in my office, so it's a challenge for me to not have everything I need. I think we have to redefine ourselves. If you define yourself as an X, and that's what you think you are, then that's what you will be, by the way. I think we all need to leave our past with its narrow and static views behind you. That's what experiencing doing is. We have to risk linking. So when you risk linking up and saying, well, I'd like to be part of this, what do you put out on the table? You put out on the table the fact that somebody may say, well, I don't want you. Okay, well, somebody does. I'll just go to the next group. Confident kids do that, and you can see the difference in young children. Go out and meet new people, join those things, which will help to set up those networks. Show belonging, demonstrate cooperation and enthusiasm. Nobody's going to want to work with you if you're a dud. Nobody's going to want to work with you if you're boring. Nobody's going to want to work with you if you frown. I mean, for gosh sakes, open up that door, encourage people to engage and align. Ask for help and support. When I was a licensed therapist, I used to tell my my the people I was working with, if we could all learn to say four things, our lives would become more meaningful, and we'd be more in charge, and we would be more positive. Number one, I made a mistake. Number two, I'm sorry. Number three, I don't know. And number four, I need help. If we could all learn to say those four things, we would all be so much richer, so much more fueled, so much more empowered. Um, so, seeking out advice from other people, incredibly important. Seek out advice from people you admire. Seek out advice from people you don't admire, and figure out how they're thinking so you can get around and create that competitive edge. Next slide. Exhibit specializing. Develop your own unique talents and special abilities. Try it. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But this photograph is from a counselor at College of the Canyons who retired to Port Townsend, Washington, Bob Segee. And he sends photos to, I guess, a good group of people every day. And when he sent me this, I said, now, how did you do that? I've been out on a lot of trails, and I'm not sure I've ever seen that quite effect. So he said, well, I didn't invent it, but there's this really cool program. And I said, did you ever have an interest in photography before you retired? He said, no. He says, but boy, it's just so enriching for me. It gives me something to look forward to every day. Use catapulting. This is a really important one. Find mentors who can help you plan your career steps and path, and then ask for advice and support. Sometimes we don't ask for advice until we're almost at the bottom. That's not the time to ask for advice. When it's not kind of going right, right? And we all want to be in charge and be successful. So sometimes we just keep on trudging, yet we know it's not going to work. When you need to ask for advice is that minute that you have that internal instinct. Yikes, I need help. Ask then. Don't ask 2 weeks later when it might be a lot more difficult for you. And then lastly, I know we would all like to believe that everybody's going to recognize the things we do well and our talents. But the reality is not so much. People are busy. They have their own things, most of which are none of our business, especially in the workplace. So you have to make sure that other people understand what you can do to help them. You can offer, you can open the door. If they don't take advantage of it right now, they might do it later. You can serve on committees. Now, I wouldn't serve on committees that are boring, because if you serve on committees that are boring, you won't want to serve on any committees. I would find those things that aren't boring. I would find those things that it's a good fit with you and your passion. I would mentor other people, and you can do it formally. We have a mentor program at the college. You can do it informally, just by having conversations or sending along articles or writing little notes. I read about you in the newspaper. That's a really cool thing you did. I didn't even know you did that kind of stuff. Write articles, give lectures, give presentations, and become active in those things in your community about which you are passionate. So those are some of the things that I would like to pass on to you. I've used this book. When she did this, I remember when she did this presentation on a Saturday in March, I think it was 1983. She challenged us all to take out a piece of paper. She told us to take out a piece of paper and write down what we wanted to be doing in 10 years. And then start to utilize these skills to develop that plan. So 1983, I wrote in 10 years, I wanted to be a college president. And then I wrote in another 5 years, I wanted to be a district CEO, a chancellor, a superintendent. And I started working that plan that following year. And I was able to get to my 15-year goal in 5 years. And but I certainly didn't do it alone. I did it by asking for help and developing a plan and being flexible and adjusting. I mean, I made a big adjustment to go from Santa Ana College, Orange County. I don't know how many malls we had in those days, probably 100, over 350 restaurants, to Quincy, California. 5 restaurants, only 3 open after 5. 1 road in, 1 road out. No 1-hour cleaning. You had to take it to Reno. And I made a big shift. Now, I didn't view it as a loss. I viewed it as an opportunity. And I must say that some of my best friends from education are from those 2 years that I spent at Feather River College, because when you're in a small community and somebody in the community needs help, everybody pulls together, and they pull together across titles, across financial ability, across stature, and you get to see the best in people. These times that we're in right now, I think when you're in a crisis, whether it was our earthquake or fires or whatever it is, the pandemic, the racial injustice, you learn about what a person is really about in a crisis by how they respond, by how they react, and by what they do. So your behaviors define you. And your behaviors are usually stimulated by what you think, which is usually stimulated by your attitude and the things that are important to you. So I would just say, if you stay right there, stay with that as your compass, that really you can do whatever you want to do, but make sure whatever you want to do makes you happy, because at least on this earth, you only get 1 run at it. So
Diane, I love about your behaviors. And one thing I want to share with everybody, Dianne Van Hook is a woman of her word. Like, she's walking the talk all the time. And I just want to have one quick example. On this slide at the bottom, it says, become active in community affairs. I had the opportunity to work at College of the Canyons, both as a part-time employee, but also as a full-time employee. And when the time came that I was transitioning to a full-time employee, I actually said during my final interview, I'm the vice president of a local nonprofit. I have 2 meetings a month that are going to conflict with a traditional workday. I want to bring this up during negotiations right now so I can have a clear idea if I can stay in the position as a vice president of a local nonprofit, or if I will need to exit from that voluntary position in order for this employment opportunity. And literally, College of the Canyons did not bat an eye for a second. They looked at me and they said, Renee, you being on a nonprofit is part of you being a leader here at College of the Canyons. It's fantastic. You're already leading a board. And don't worry, we are happy to support the time where you are with your nonprofit. And we trust you that you'll make up the time within your workday. It was a flexibility. It was an instant trust. And it solidified that, yes, I wanted to be at College of the Canyons, because they saw that what I did in the community wasn't just about COC, but it transcends the campus, and they decided to invest in that time with me as well. And so this isn't just something on a slide. This is something that I lived when I was at College of the Canyons. Now, I know we want to spend some time going into some Q&A. Dr. Van Hook is graciously agreed to get that going with us. So please be thinking about your questions. We have one more slide here, and then we're going to transition to a little bit of, we'll pull away from the slides, and we'll just get a chance to talk with Diane and ask her some of those questions that we didn't have a chance to already hear her reflect on. So Diane, any thoughts you have for this last slide with the advice that you'd like to share with us before we go to the live Q&A?
No, I think that closing advice is pretty clear. I think that you can say whatever you want to say, but you can say you care about people. You can say that that you don't agree with somebody, but you know that you can together work together to do good things. But your behavior is really going to be it's the vehicle. The behavior is the vehicle. The attitude's the gas in the engine. So if you believe in yourself and avoid negative self-talk and give yourself permission and move from thinking to doing, and always focus on how you treat people, because how you treat people may mean a lot more to them than it does to you. They may be waiting to be included. Build your resiliency muscle, your tenacity capability. Be civil, be kind. I think in these days and times, of all the things that we can be, it's kind. Kind may not help us at the moment. We may need to be something else like obstinate or ornery in order to get to where we want to go. But kind is going to have an overarching impact on ever so many people. So that's really my closing advice is just be true to yourself, and I think it'll all work.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love what Diane has to share here. I want to make sure, can everybody see me now? We can see her back again. One of the things that, before we go to the Q&A, that I just want to mention is we talked about the importance of people and the importance of being connected and whatnot. One of the things Chancellor Van Hook does and has done for many, many years, and I'm going to just show it because I like to keep tangible things nearby me. I'm one of those people. Chancellor Van Hook writes detailed letters of appreciation to the people that work with her and to the people that are being innovative on her campus. I want to show this is walking the talk. It's not like Diane's written one letter. I literally have, yeah. I was at Canyons for 14 years, so I'm glad I have a stack of letters. But I keep a smile file nearby where I keep documentation from students, documentation from mentors that I trust and I have believed in me over the years. And every once in a while, I pull it out. And today was one of those days I pulled it out because we got to walk the talk as leaders. We need to value people. There's so much to learn from Chancellor Van Hook. Today just, this is just the very tip of the iceberg. But with this, we'd like to open it up. We have about 15 more minutes together. And we'd like to take a few minutes to see what questions do you have for Chancellor Van Hook? What would you like to ask her? So I'm going to get silent for a minute. I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to see who would like to unmute and have a question for her.
It must be really scary.
Don't worry, Diane. I have a whole set of questions. I'm ready to go, but I wanted to make sure we asked everybody else. And I know you can seem like Diane might seem like really intimidating because she's a chancellor and she's served in our system. She's also totally down to earth. She's somebody who over the years, like when I was having a hard one and I'd run into her in the elevator at the university center, she could tell and she'd come in for a hug. Her skills with people are just extraordinary. So do we have any questions for everybody who's on right now that we'd like to ask Chancellor Van Hook? Okay, I see a hand. Jonine.
I don't know if you can see me or not. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to jump on, but I just wanted to say, as an educator, I wanted to just thank her for sharing such a caring framework, community framework, and just embracing, asking questions, and leading in such a in such an exemplary way. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Excellent. And I see Leslie Carr has her hand up. Leslie, why don't you unmute?
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, Dr. Van Hook. Always nice to see you. Could you share with us what's the top 1 or 2 skills that people entering the workforce need to know today?
That's an interesting conversation. We have been having that a lot because we're re-envisioning our career center job placement function to more of a workplace solutions kind of concept. So I think number one, you have to demonstrate and clearly articulate your willingness to learn, because things are changing so fast out there all around us that you may have that perfect set of skills today to be a clinical lab specialist, but in 6 months codes change, things have to adjust, and you will need to be able to continue to learn. You know, it used to be when I was a student at Long Beach City College, somebody told me that once you get a bachelor's degree, you'll be able to work for life. Well, that's not the case. Employers want competencies, and in order to maintain competencies, they have to have a staff that's willing to continue to learn and to do. That's number one. The second thing I think that people going into the workforce need to be able to communicate that they are wanting to do is listen. Listen to a diverse perspective of opinions and solutions. There is not just one way to build that raft. There's many different ways. So I think that's the second skill, is listener and able to integrate and appreciate different perspectives and at least give them all a fair airing as options. And the third is a desire to work with other people. I think more and more, I was chatting with Renee, there's some studies being done right now by a number of the most creative and competitive industries in the tech industries in our world today. And they're realizing that while much can get done online, that collaboration that happens in person yields a different character and quality than collaboration online. And it's not to say that both aren't valuable and both needed, but I think employers are looking today for people who actually like people, who want to interact, who are good communicators, and who will work to design solutions together. And then the last is follow through. You know, if you say you're going to show up, show up. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't leave people hanging. Excuses don't really matter if other people are depending on you. So I think that those 4 things are the most important things that employers across the board, from an entry-level worker to a high-level executive, that's what they're looking for.
Thank you, Diane. What other questions do we have?
Hi, it's Rosemary, and thank you for your time this afternoon. I work over at Cuesta College in Cal Poly SLO, and I am and I grew up in Long Beach, so we've probably crossed paths somewhere along the way. But one of the questions I have, because in my role, I'm full-time, part-time. So I work at 2 colleges, and I haven't counted up the hours, but I'm sure it's over 100% loaded between the 2. And something that I have a question of is, how do you, or as a part-timer, how can I find good leadership opportunities? I feel like a lot of times I and other folks in my position are kind of looked over because it's assumed we just kind of like do a punch card kind of thing. And so I'd love to hear how you, how you grow up your part-timers, especially, I mean, there's not a whole lot of hope of a full-time position, but how can we lead even if we don't have that status as a full-timer?
Well, I think it kind of depends on the places in which you're working. At COC, anyone, full-time, part-time, classified, faculty, administrators, can participate in our leadership program, in our LEAD program. And every time we do one, we have a probably, I'm going to guess, 20%, 15 to 20% part-time faculty who participate. So I think it depends. You can join ours the next time we do one. Give the information to your information to Renee, and we'll send you the application when it comes out in December. We do LEAP every spring. We meet 6 Fridays in the spring, and everybody's part of a solution team, and they do a business plan, and then we try to fund those business plans and deploy the activities. So I don't know where you're trying to link up with. How long have you been at Cuesta?
I've actually been here about 3-4 years now, and I've taken on responsibilities where they're available, but it seems like anything formal is quickly passed over for full-time faculty. And part of that is because I understand that as part of their contract, they're expected to lead in a lot of situations. But I guess I'm kind of looking at it as we have an incredible wealth. And I know in this call right here, there's probably a lot of part-timers who are doing more than part-time. And I think it's an overlooked asset at some places, just in talking to some of my colleagues. So I'm just trying to think about different ways that we can, because everyone in this call right now is a leader already on their campus and doing what we're doing. We're really forging a path with teacher pathways. And so it's good to hear from people like you in your position and how you recruit and support and cultivate leadership around you. So it's really helpful.
So I don't know what the current stats are at COC, but about a year ago, 62% of all of our full-time employees had been our students. And so that's one of the things I think makes College of the Canyons different, is because when you go back to the place that like you get your start, you bring a certain personal approach to it that creates a different kind of air quality, right? I mean, it's just a different mix. A great number of our full-time faculty, I should know this great number of our full-time faculty were our part-time faculty. So I don't know the details of your particular circumstances. I would expect that during the pandemic and for a number of years coming out of the pandemic, that many people that have worked in the system for a while are going to leave it because they don't want to make the transitions. I wouldn't give up hope for obtaining a full-time position. And as far as leading, I know that the laws have just changed. I should know this too, but I don't exactly. But I think now part-time faculty can teach up to 85% of a load. I think that bill just went through. So there may be some opportunities for part-time faculty to teach a couple classes and have like a release time or a certain class or two that allows them to provide leadership. But I'd be glad to think about it a little bit more. And if you want to call me, Renee can give you my numbers. I go to work every day. Today I was on a big thing all morning long, so I just did it from my house, which is very rare. As you can see, I'm not set up. I'm not technologically capable. I need a lot of assistance. I still use Pilot Razor blue pens and yellow legal pads to write my memos. But I've been at work almost every day since we closed. So you feel free to contact me. Give me a couple weeks. Let me think about it.
And Diane's honest as she's saying this. I just want to make sure everybody understands that when one of the greatest things with the LEAP project and program that Diane has had over the years now is she's like it's grown. So if you do this LEAP level 1, That's one experience. Then there's a LEAP executive experience. There was a LEAP experience where you're a member of the community and you want leadership training and you're not working at COC. Guess what? Here's one that you're going to be included in. I mean, it really has been an inclusive model. And for those of you who work with me through teacher preparation, over the years, we've done business plans, white papers, advocacy letters. I learned to write those through the leadership program I did at College of the Canyons. I had no idea that I'd be writing white papers and sending them to our governor and to Tony Thurmond and to all of our, our education and system leads. I had no idea. But since Dianne believed in me, I got to be in the program. I got to do multiple LEAP programs. And then what I'm able to do now is just, I believe in myself so much more due to the leadership training I was involved in. So please, when Dianne says, here's an opportunity, she means it. She's meaning it. So thank you, Dianne, for that. We really appreciate it. Now we are down to our last 4 minutes together. So let's see if we have maybe one more question that we can ask Dianne, and then we'll wrap up our opportunity to be together today. Oh, and I see Leah put something in the chat. Leah, do you want to talk about that? I also see that somebody from the Galaxy also has a comment. So whoever wants to open it, please feel free to.
So it's not really a question, but more of that mentoring thing really resonated with me. So I'm hoping that as part of this this COP, we can have a leadership mentoring component to it, because I know I look up to so many people like you, Renee, as my mentor, but there's nothing really formal, right? It would be great if we can have something like that in the COP.
So,
sorry.
So we have a mentor program at College of the Canyons. Renee could share that info, but that one was actually an idea that spawned from a mentor program that we did through the Administrators Association, the Association of California Community College Administrators. I used to chair that management development committee for about 10, 12 years. And we developed an administrator mentor program through ACA, which is still going on. And that's a little bit more structured. So maybe Renee, you can take those two and, take the best of both and make it into something that could work for this group.
Dianne, I love it, because you know how I operate. If somebody's going to say we need this, it's okay, how do we make it happen? And I also don't believe in just starting things without, we might as well take what's good that others have done and build from there. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Dianne. Thank you. Thank you. Well, with that, I want to say one thing too, also. Galaxy, I need your email because you made a comment about the Child Development Center at El Camino. El Camino is one of the campuses I'm working with right now. I would love to talk with you more about that and figuring out how we can make that happen. So perfect. Let's talk offline and we can get some traction in that direction. But with that, we are now almost exactly at 2:30. Dianne, thank you so much for being here today. You are such a huge resource to our system and to education in general. And I just want to say thank you for being a mentor to me and for being a role model to many of us. We will continue to lead. We will continue to do things that we might not always feel like we're there or like we're supposed to be doing them, but we know it's right. And so we will continue to lead with a good conscience and making sure that we're being kind and we're being good people, like you said. And then also being bold, because we got to dream big. That's something that I have always taken back from DVH. Dream big, dream big, dream big. And there's been many times in my career where I've stopped and thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't try that, or maybe I shouldn't. And then I hear that dream big and it's wait a second. If I want to be state superintendent of public instruction, why not? Right? Because it's just another job. And so Dianne, with that, I am dreaming big, and I will promise you that we will continue to make good impact in our communities and in our education systems. With that, thank you so much, Dianne, for being here today. Thank you, everybody, for being here today on a Friday. And I'm excited. I will shoot out an email soon with our next guest speaker. Thank you for a wonderful first leadership community of practice, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. And again, Dianne, thank you. You are so wonderful. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody.